Jump in. Okay, so I think one game we have to talk about, especially right after we had this debate over who is the best quarterback, and Evan bringing up Jalen Hurts teased it up perfectly. We got the Chiefs playing the Eagles this upcoming weekend, prime time Super Bowl matchup where we know what happened. They're 1-1 against each other in this modern era, and the Chiefs recently just got trounced by them by the Eagles in the Super Bowl just recently. So obviously, primetime matchup. Jalen Carter is playing, which is a hilarious, I think, ratings move by them. But I'm glad he is. It makes the matchup more palatable. But we also know Mahomes and the Chiefs are going in pretty decimated on offense, at least injuries-wise, with the receiving core, their top two guys being out right now. So it should be an interesting situation to see if they can win. It's in Arrowhead, so it should be interesting to see if the Eagles can go out there and beat them with the 1.5 spread that they have, I think, on the road against the Chiefs. What do you guys think of the matchup? I will give my take probably closer to the end since I'm the Mahomes guy of this podcast.
Yeah, I don't get the matchup, to be honest. I don't see the bounce back. I see the Chiefs going 0-2. I think Philly's going to easily win and cover this spread, even in Arrowhead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think this might end up being one of those ones that, like, when you try to break it down on paper and like logically come up with what's going to happen, it's just like not how it's going to play out. So if I think about this logically, I don't see any reason why this will necessarily go differently from a matchup standpoint on paper. Because the one thing I see about the Eagles this year that is way worse than last year is their secondary, literally just their CB2, which is Adoree Jackson, who is horrendous, right? And CeeDee Lamb. It was odd to me that they had Mitchell shadowing Pickens, but I assume they were doing Jackson with safety help against Dallas. But CD could have had 200 yards in that game if he brought his hands to the game. He already had like 80 or 100 or whatever. Like, Adoree Jackson is awful. But my problem is, like, I don't see, without Worthy and obviously without Rice, how are the Chiefs going to be able to expose that? Like, is Hollywood Brown enough? Right. And what do the Eagles do defensively? And then now that Carter's back, obviously they didn't get as much of a pass rush as they would have liked against Dallas with Carter in there. And I don't see how the Chiefs are going to be able to run the ball into the teeth of that defensive line, like with Pacheco and Hunt. I just don't see it. So, maybe Kelsey has a big game, but with all that said, I'm like, this is the ultimate hungry dog runs faster game. The Chiefs coming off a loss and everyone's like down on them. They're like, oh, the Chargers are going to win the division. The Chiefs dynasty is over. We just got absolutely stomped in the Super Bowl. Like, it's the ultimate setup for them to come out and win this game and like turn the narrative on this head at home. And I think that's why the spread's only 1.5. So that's why I'm very torn, where logically I'm like, I don't think the Eagles are going to kill them this time, but I'm like, logically, I feel like the Eagles would go out there and win. But I think my pick is going to be the Chiefs here, just because, like, hungry dog runs faster. This is the National Football League. Week 2 is the ultimate reverse the script on week 1 week, where you're like, you think you learned something in week 1, and you're like, nah, it hasn't changed that much. And I think week 2, the Chiefs, despite being without their guys, are going to look way better, and they're just going to find a way to win this game. I think they're probably going to have to do it in a low-scoring fashion, but I think the Eagles are a little more comfortable coming off a win. So I don't know. I don't have a ton of logic, but other than kind of the vibes of the Chiefs finding a way to win this game. So
my thing is, I wanted Evan to pick the Eagles so then I could just go pick the Chiefs on my own, as I usually do in matchups. But he went with the Chiefs, so there we go. Here's the thing. I think Evan teed it up perfectly, where logically speaking, it makes so much sense to pick the Eagles, right? Because, like, matchup-wise, they obviously had the advantage in the Super Bowl. My thing, though, is I don't think the Eagles are anywhere near the Super Bowl team that they are, at least not yet early in the season. Like, when they were playing the Cowboys, they legitimately had a strong shot of losing that game. And I understand Jalen Carter was out, which is a massive loss for them. But I said going into the year, they lost a lot of depth at a lot of positions. Like, and corner, it wasn't just the second corner. It was they could throw 5 corners out there last year with some of the veterans they had and play a nickel or a dime when they needed to and get that pass rush home and have all these guys flying around. They don't feel like they can do that to me right now. Also, the rookies from last year, Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, they're very good, but I don't think I'm already like on the train of they're going to be like shut down guys. But the flip side to all that is we're talking about a Chiefs team that does not have Worthy. They do not have Rashee Rice till 6 games after. So passing wise, it's going to be tough. Here's the big difference for the Chiefs this year. They invested in their offensive line. And the only reason that game with the Chargers was a one-possession game was Mahomes actually had a little bit of time to try to get the ball deep and make some plays while in a situation where last year, even with all the injuries he had on the offense, like with the receivers and the running back, their left tackle position was an absolute nightmare. This is why I'm still shocked they managed to win as many games as they did and go to the Super Bowl. And I just think Mahomes is going to do Mahomes things this week. I mean, he, even in a loss last week, was making some plays where I was like, bro, how do you even think to make that throw? Like, how do you do that? Like, he's like falling vertically and like Supermaning and like making sidearm throws to complete first downs and stuff. I think he's going to be pulling rabbits out of a hat this weekend. And it's going to be one of the hardest games he's ever played. I know it's at home, but situationally, it's going to be like matchup-wise one of the hardest ones. But I think he's going to figure out how to do it because I think he's really frustrated with the conversations that are going on where it's like, oh, is Josh Allen better than him? Oh, are the Eagles his Achilles heel? Oh, are the Chargers better than him? And all the guy's done is go to the Super Bowl every damn year for years and years and years. So I think the criticism is going to get him really amped up. And so I'm going to take the Chiefs, man. I am.
I love the heart behind y'all's picks, but there's no way that any of that actually happens. Like, what positional advantage do the Chiefs have outside of quarterback?
Oh, I think the advantage would be if you go back. I'm not going to call it an advantage. What I'm going to call it as is week one, people were like, oh, the Chiefs defense is, this and that after 1 week against the Chargers where they let up 27 points against a very good offense. Spags is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. And there's no way I expect him to come out of that Super Bowl with his current roster and say, hey, we're going to approach this the exact same way we did last year. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to have as comfortable of a game this time around. I think Spags is going to give him all kinds of different looks. And we'll see if Hurts can actually beat him with the passing game the second time in a row. Because I think that they're going to give him some mix-ups that gets him a little bit uncomfortable. And if it comes down to that and the Eagles don't score as many points as they did in the Super Bowl, then I'll take Mahomes to complete the little dink and dunk plays here and there and just try to convert first down.
You're talking about coordinator scheme, though. What about like the positional advantage? Like, are you essentially admitting that there's no positional advantage?
Zach, you have for the last 3 years picked against the Chiefs in every playoff game until last year. You finally got it right in the Eagles. And how many of those games did the Chiefs have the advantage? They didn't. The only advantage they've ever had is quarterback. The reality is their team has not been personnel-wise as good as other teams as they used to be back when they had Tyreek Hill in them. But they've still managed to win Super Bowls with them because it's because of the coaching and because they have the better quarterback. But
I agree. But we're going now years back, right? Let's talk last year.
We're going back to last year. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Last year's a perfect example. They got trounced like 40-7, and this is the same unit that's coming to play them with a worse offense that the Chiefs are going to have.
It's not the same unit. The Eagles have lost a ton of positional depth. That was a big part of their Super Bowl run where they were able to shut down as much as they did in the secondary. And the other aspect is the Chiefs O-line was an absolute nightmare going into that Super Bowl matchup, but they made it work with the dinking and dunking. Their O-line is a lot better going into this year. I made that point last week. So if their
O-line is better, but
a little bit more time, that might make the difference. I mean, to be clear, you have a very fair argument. The Eagles have a way better roster. I don't dispute that. I'm just taking the quarterback here and the coaching.
I guess what I'm saying is, and I love this, like this is like perfect dialogue for the pod. Like I'm just playing devil's advocate and pushing you guys, but I completely respect your pick, by the way. No, I'm just saying, like, I'm challenging you guys. Like there's literally not too much that has changed. Like the Chiefs offensive line did get better, but the Eagles offensive line is still head and shoulders above the Kansas City Chiefs. So even from a positional alignment perspective, the Eagles win there.
It's just can you give Mahomes a couple of seconds to actually process the field and try to get the ball out where he wants to. They were not able to do that in the Super Bowl. I think they're a little bit more capable of doing that this game.
See, I'm challenging you guys. I gotta probably make a polarizing statement if I'm gonna challenge y'all's pick. So I'll make the polarizing statement. This game's gonna be like 30-10. This game's gonna be like 30-10. Philly's gonna win. Yeah, and I'm actually gonna put personal money on this one.
You think it's gonna be 30 in Arrowhead to confirm?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is gonna be domination from the start of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't think it will be, but we'll see what happens. I like it though. It feels like our old takes. I love it.
The one point I'll make maybe because I think the Chiefs defense is the biggest thing here. Like I'm banking on the Chiefs defense, doing way better than they did against them in the Super Bowl. I'm really banking on that to keep it relatively low scoring so that Mahomes can make the plays at the end. And I know they looked bad against the Chargers, but there's the whole turf thing in Brazil that happened last year, where in the Brazil game last year, the Eagles defense, they won the game, but they gave up like 30 some odd points to the Packers. And I think it was just the turf was all whack and no one could stop anyone. And then turns out the Eagles have like the best defense in the NFL and we had no idea. So that's why, especially with this game, I don't want to read too much into how they looked, but I do agree with you. I'm full of vibes here for picking the Chiefs.
Yeah, me too.
There's not.
Plus,
I hate the Eagles, so
in my opinion, I'm taking, the better coaching and the better quarterback versus the better actual roster. That's what I'm doing here.
And what I'll add is the more motivated team. And I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be better this year about not just going off vibes and motivation, because I do find that's a little overplayed. But I do think in this moment, coming off getting stopped in the Super Bowl, chip on your shoulder, the Eagles obviously they'll want to win, but they don't really care.
I think they definitely care.
They care.
I think that AJ Brown has a lot of emotion knowing that he didn't have a very good game one, and he's going to try to bounce back with the 7 reception, 130-yard games that he debuted last year.
I mean, they care, but they care as they would another big game against a good team. I don't think they care because they're not like, oh, this is the team we played in the Super Bowl. Like the Chiefs are like, oh no, this is the team that killed us in the Super Bowl. We care about that. The Eagles are just like, oh, this. Well, that's the problem. That's why I'm like,
aren't going to do anything different.
It's like the Baltimore thing. Baltimore had all the revenge factor, and then they fumbled the ball at the end of the game.
My thing is, Zach, personnel-wise, maybe it's not as much of a change as you alluded to. But my thing is, if you think that Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Eric Spagnuolo, after getting trounced the way they did in the Super Bowl, are going to go back into a matchup at home with the exact same approach they took in that last matchup, that's where I think you would be completely wrong. We're talking about some of the best coaching and one of the smartest quarterbacks ever. They're not going to take the same approach. And my thing is their ability to adjust is why I believe that they can make the difference. There's a reason the line is 1.5. Vegas isn't crazy, bro. They know what they're doing. And in my opinion, there's a reason. It's not just motivation, it's smartness. And I'm not saying the Eagles don't have it, but if you want me to pick between who I think is going to be able to make more adjustments, it's the Chiefs. Now, the question is, can those adjustments make up for the big gap in talent? I think it can, because I believe Mahomes is going to be on this revenge tour this year, which I think might make up the difference. But I don't know. You're right. Without Worthy, it makes it a bit more difficult. So I might be wrong, but I'm sticking to my take.
Yeah, I would say that the smartness also comes from the Eagles' offensive scheme. They don't make mistakes, dude. Jalen Hurts does not make mistakes. So
that is true.
That's very much true. He's a game manager.
He did not make mistakes in the Super Bowl, which is why they won the Super Bowl. He definitely makes a lot of mistakes. His issue going into the playoffs, and the reason that you realize last year that when the Eagles started winning a lot more games was when they stopped throwing the football and started running the ball more. That was an active decision they made to cut down on Jalen Hurts' turnovers when he would drop back and try to do too much with the passing game. And they started running the ball more. And then the playoffs came around, and then Jalen Hurts, once Saquon Barkley established himself as unstoppable, started throwing the ball. And I'll give him credit where credit's due. He didn't make mistakes in the big games. But before the first half of the year, he was the reason that they were saying they were losing games. It's AJ Brown literally went out there and complained about the passing game halfway through the year because they weren't able to do enough in the passing game.
I think that was.
I don't know if I can get. Yeah,
it was 100% the Eagles' narrative last year. It wasn't even my. Yeah.
I mean, dude, like just to put into perspective, Patrick Mahomes had more than double interceptions than Jalen Hurts had last year. So who's really the turnover king?
Interceptions isn't the only metric for it. It's your decision making in games. If your own team is deciding to not let you throw the ball as much, and then you end up succeeding more. This isn't me trying to knock on Jalen Hurts. This is me just being honest about what went down last year. The decision was, hey, we need to stop throwing the ball with Jalen Hurts as much because we're not converting third downs and we're turning the ball more over when we're trying to pass the ball. Let's just stick to what we're really good at, which is run the game and then go off play action and tush push, which works great for them. That is how they made the run. That's when they started
becoming a better touchdown interception ratio than Patrick Mahomes by a long shot.
Based on stats, then Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have been in the Super Bowl last year, Zach. Like, if we're going based on stats,
Jalen Hurts wouldn't have been either. Like, you're trying to point out that Jalen Hurts is some turnover machine. He doesn't make mistakes, and I just statistically proved that to you.
No, he did make plenty of mistakes. It's why they changed their entire offensive scheme. This is not if we're just going to look at numbers, that's one thing. If you're throwing the ball into bad spots, the ball's getting tipped, you're not converting third downs, you're not converting fourth downs when you're passing the ball, and your own coach decides, hey, I'm going to stop throwing the ball as much, I'm going to run it more, and then your team automatically succeeds more. That's a pretty big inclination that the efficiency is more when you're not throwing as much. But to be clear, Hurts had a great playoffs and a great Super Bowl, so he cut down on those. But even Evan made the take last year going into the playoffs that his concern was the turnover issues that Jalen Hurts had. If they have to rely too much on passing, they're going to run into those issues. I remember that take from Evan as well. And what Hurts actually did in the Super Bowl is more of a barometer to what you're speaking to. But I'm not saying throughout the course of his career he's this super efficient player. And if he doesn't make mistakes, it's because he doesn't throw the ball as much too. Let's make that very clear as well.
I think his mistakes don't necessarily manifest into interceptions, which is where I agree with somewhere in the middle. Like, his interception totals don't get very high because he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. So in that sense, I wouldn't say he makes many mistakes, but he does take a lot of sacks, for example, because of that passive approach on offense. So it's and I think early in the year, there was a lot of inaccuracies, maybe some decision making putting into bad spots that didn't necessarily manifest in as many interceptions, but it did stall the passing offense. So I'll land somewhere in the middle of you guys. In the playoffs, he took 1 million sacks. He didn't in the Chiefs game. But that's because he's just so afraid to make mistakes that it just almost stifles them. The thing, though, are they going to be able to run the ball like they did last year? They weren't in the first game. So there's a question for you, too.
The offensive line for the Eagles. But I do want to say this because, Zach, it's unfair to Jalen Hurts to say that, I expect him to go lose the game for the Eagles. That's not how I feel. And I think Jalen Hurts deserves a ton of credit for how he improved throughout the season, especially he played his best football in the playoffs. So I don't want to make it seem like I think Jalen Hurts is going to go lose that game for him. I'm just saying that the efficiency for that offense comes from limiting how often he throws the football. And he does more damage running and then going off play action than he does just dropping back in the pocket and trying to throw against the Spags defense. If you do that, you will lose that game. If you just try to stand back there and throw the football without getting the run game established, Eric Spagnuolo is going to give you 800 different blitz packages and coverages. That's how they've beaten them in the past. That's all I'm saying. But I know I don't want to disrespect Jalen Hurts. I
also just to mention too, teams early on in this season have historically gone into Arrowhead and won. So Detroit did it the year prior, and then Baltimore did it 2 years. Baltimore did it 2 years beforehand. So the Kansas City Chiefs have also dropped games in Arrowhead early on in the regular season. I don't really think it's a relevant or an important point, but I'm just saying it happens. And I'm surprised that this spread is minus 1.5. I'm telling you, the Eagles are going to demolish these guys, man.
It's based off Vegas and the rosters. It's more likely that they will lose this game than they'll win it, at least from a statistical standpoint and from a pick standpoint. But that's where me and Evan picking them is coming more from a perspective and vibe and a schematic thing than it is a personnel thing. That's clear. I mean, it's the same reason I pick the Chiefs to win every year. So
yeah, the coaching angle is great because it is it's why it's hard to beat a team back-to-back times. Now, obviously, we're several months apart here, but it's because the team that wins isn't going to change anything because they won, so they think they can just take the same game plan, not change anything. But then, like Sai's been mentioning, with Spags, he's going to completely change things up on offense. They're going to change things up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times those changes are the difference with the team not being prepared for it. So I like that.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. That's a good point that you guys made because we definitely know that Vic
Sai made it. I don't want to take credit for it. I was just yeah.
No. And to be clear, I feel bad though because in my defense of the Chiefs, a lot of times I feel like I'm discrediting other people and saying it. Like for example, Sirianni deserves a ton of credit for going out there and winning a Super Bowl because a year before that, his whole fan base was calling for his head. So clearly, he's a good coach. But if I'm comparing Sirianni to Andy Reid and anyone on the Eagles coaching staff, as good as they are, to Eric Spagnuolo, and I'm comparing Jalen Hurts to Patrick Mahomes, we're talking about three guys who are elite, like the class of their situation. Andy Reid is probably the best head coach. Eric Spagnuolo is probably the best defensive coordinator, and Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback. Those three, I just think, intelligence-wise, are going to be able to be very creative. That's all I'm saying. But we'll leave it at that. I mean, there's a very strong possibility Zach ends up being right. I'm going to go with my gut on this one.
Oh yeah, man, I know I'm right. I'm going to tell you guys next week. But I do love the banter, and I love that we push each other's buttons.
I've gotten to tell you I'm right plenty of times with the Chiefs, Zach, but you did get me the last time with the Eagles against the Chiefs, so I got to give credit where credit's due. So we'll leave it at that.
My confidence is low, but I like the new segment. A game of the week for the upcoming week, and we'll dive into it in real big detail. But I guess we have to wrap up this portion of it at least. So again, if you're watching this whole time, thank you as always for the support. We're going to switch over and do our game picks. So if you want the weekly pick'ems, check out the other video that should be up within probably 24 hours of this one. So thanks as always. That was Mondays Down South.
Bro, that was amazing. Like,
that was awesome.
I have been